This video is brought to you by Miniature Market. Thousands of board games, discounted prices, miniaturemarket.com.
Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today we're going to be building our own kingdom. We're going to be putting up buildings with lots of towers. We're going to be putting them on territories like forests and fields and farms and lakes. And we're going to be trying to control different areas. Today we're going to be looking at Bunny Kingdom. This is Iello's big time Gen Con release that just came out. It's for 2 to 4 players and it's designed by Richard Garfield. This game is a drafting game with an area control mechanism as well. So let's take a look. I'll show you how it's played. I'll see you on the other side. Over the course of Bunny Kingdom, you're going to be putting bunnies out into certain territories, creating big groups of them called fiefs, and trying to have buildings in there as well. At the beginning of the game, you'll be given a ton of bunnies of your specific color. Now here's what the bunnies look like up close and the different colors of them. And over the course of the game, here's the different buildings you'll be getting with 1, 2, or 3 spires. Now, Bunny Kingdom is mainly a drafting game, so each round you're going to get a certain amount of cards, around 10 or 12ish depending on the amount of players, and you're going to be drafting. You're going to be looking at the cards, selecting 2 of them, and passing the rest of them to the next player. So let's say I selected these 2 cards. They're both locations. They tell you where on the board you're going to place your bunny at F4 and E4. This tells you what type of resource that produces. This just means it doesn't produce anything. So I put them on F4 and E4, put the bunnies there. Now, each of these is a territory, and anyone that has a bunny on it is considered a fief, but now that these are connected orthogonally, this is one big fief, and it's going to continue to getting larger. You'll continue to spread out, trying to make larger fiefs. Everything's connected except any of the lava fields in between mountains, but essentially these 2 are one big fief, and it's got one different resource, which is, in this case, wood. Now, as you're drafting, each player is drafting 2 cards, playing those 2 cards, and simultaneously doing what those cards say. In this case, it's another location, but this shows it's worth 1 point because this is one of the starting locations where you have one of the spires in it. Because at the beginning of the game, anywhere where there's a town, you'll put one of these 1 spire buildings. So here we have a G9, that's where we place it, and I put my bunny right there. This is important because it's going to help to the strength of your fief. These are luxury types resources. I'm just going to tell you different types of cards. You'd essentially put this little building on here, and you'd wait till after all the drafting's over, and you'd place these during the building phase a little bit later. Now let's say earlier I was able to place my bunny here on this mountain, and I got this. This is basically a building of 3, but some of them have specific requirements. This has to go on to a mountain. So because I had a bunny here, because I had played that location card earlier, I am now here. And let's say now this is becoming one big fief, and we have 3 total spires and the 1 resource. The sky towers allow you to connect 2 of your territories with sky tower tokens, so you'd add these there and you can add these in the building phase. Now the camps are also buildings. These essentially allow you to camp down into a territory that you didn't have a location for that's empty, sort of like temporary, because if somebody else comes up with that card later, they can boot you off. But you'd put this token here and you could add this during the building phase. Now these are called parchment cards. They're essentially like end game goal or points. And if you keep these, you just keep them face down for the end of the game. Something like, hey, 12 points if you control at least 10 different fiefs. Or Master Farmer, 2 points for each carrot you produce. That's essentially every piece of the board that you're on that has a carrot on it. Or some of them are just straight up points. And there's a couple more. There's 12 points if you're the player that controls the most territories. Or 2 points for each mountain you control. Things like that. And at the end of the drafting phase, everyone will be able to add the buildings if they want. They're not forced to do so, but if they want to add these buildings, they can. So let's say this player places camp here because he wants to start moving out into getting different resources, in this case like the forest. And let's say they also added this extra special resource here, and it has to be on a carrot field, and it is, so they added this there, giving that space another resource. You wouldn't play the cards down here, I'm just kind of putting them there so you can see. Now let's just say this player also had this. They had a bunny there already from a location card. They could use the sky tower to now join these 2 territories. So now you can make large fiefs, since this is one fief right here, and this is another one, but now they're sort of joined. So at the end of that building phase, you'd go to the harvest phase where you look at the points, and it's the amount of strength, which is the sum of the towers, times its wealth, the number of different resources. So we see this and this is connected for the 2 sky towers, so this fief and this fief is connected. So we took the number of towers. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 4 towers. Then we look at the number of different resources. This has wood, and this one just has wood as well. So it's going to be 4 times 1, which is 4 points. So there we get 4 points. You do that for every fief you have on the board. And in the first round, there's not too much scoring, but as you get on for the second, third, and fourth rounds, it ramps up quite a bit. And after that, you'd start a second round. Now you get the cards again, you'd start drafting, and every other round you go in a different direction. So if we were passing left in round 1, we'll pass right in round 2, and so on and so forth. And keep in mind that you're only grabbing 2 cards at a time, but you will go through all the cards. So like, in a 3-player game, I believe you'll go through 12 cards. So 6 turns of selecting cards and drafting until all the cards are done. And after you're done at the end of the 4th round and you've done the harvest scoring, everyone flip over their parchments one at a time, go through, score all of those, and whoever has the most points is the winner. And the 2-player variant is you'll get 10 cards in your hand that's secret, 10 in a draw deck. When it's your turn, you'll draw 1, you'll select 1, and discard 1 out of the game. All right, there's Bunny Kingdom. Now, in usual Iello form, I love the art, especially on the cards. And there's a lot of unique cards in this game. There's tons of them. And all the art on them are gorgeous and beautiful, like always. Now, the game really hinges around this drafting mechanism, and I tend to really like drafting games. And this game, oh my gosh, out of any drafting game I've ever played, I think this one, almost every turn that I receive cards, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many good choices. Everything's good. Oh, this looks good. Oh, that looks good. Oh, this is cool. And even if you're not getting the exact ones you need, you're probably going to be getting things that are close to where you're trying to go to, or you're getting ones of these parchment cards that you can use for endgame goals that maybe you can then focus on. And I just really love that every time you were getting these cards, there were a ton of tough choices to make, but all of them were really fun to mess with. And even though you get to take 2 cards, which is cool. But there's usually so many good cards that you want to take more than 2. But the drafting engine in this was amazing. It was the best part of the game for me. I really like that they added those parchments cards, those longer term strategies where, hey, if there's nothing better there right now that you need from the location cards or buildings, you can get some of the parchment cards and just think about that throughout the game. Or there's some really good ones that you're already kind of going for by accident. You look at them like, oh, how many carrots can I control? Oh, I'm already on a bunch of farms. I'll hold this one. And I like how you get to keep those underneath your little card there and you look at them through the game. So I like that those gave you a longer term strategy in the game. It's not just about area control, not just about trying to do the same thing over and over. Those parchments will make the game feel different for you every time you play. I love that the buildings give you even more choices, because quite honestly, the building phase is the part of this game that I think takes the longest, at least for me it did, where, hey, maybe you've got a camp, and maybe you've got a sky building, and maybe you've got a kingdom, a spire building that you're going to put out, and you really got to figure out, and then you've got these extra special resources, and you're trying to figure out, well, where can I put these? And you're looking around and going, oh, well, if I put this one here and this one here, that'll bring this up to that, then I'll get this many points. But if I do this over here, and there's a lot of thinking of interesting choices as to where do you put these buildings? Because, for when you're looking at, you're trying to basically build a fief up to have a lot of spires and a lot of resources, but you don't want to go too far imbalance on either side because you're not maximizing your points. So it really is an interesting puzzle to solve with the building. I found that even though the drafting choices were really good and really tough, where to put your buildings and tokens are even harder. I love those camps that you can kind of camp out and temporarily go on a place for now, but you might get booted off later by another player. So overall, there is a lot of positive things to like about the game. However, there's also a handful of things that I didn't like about the game. Well, let's go to the minor things first. So the box makes it seem like it's a nice comical little game, but the game is actually heavier than the box would think it would be. Looking at the quite cute art, you'd think this is a quick little game, and this is some brain-burning decisions you got to make, especially with the building side of things. I also felt like even though I liked the parchments and it gave you that long-term strategy as a pro, on the other side, I felt like there were almost too many of them. Even if I'm not really focusing on them too heavy, you're still going to end up with a good handful of them at the end of the game, and it's really hard, even when looking at them often, to concentrate on all of them. You almost have to just kind of neglect some and just go after a few, and then you're just going to get points for some, maybe. And I felt like there was almost too many things to think about at once. I felt like there were almost too many of those parchment cards. My biggest complaint is really with the board. The board is too small for the amount of pieces that are going on this between the bunnies and the tokens and the buildings. It gets super busy. It gets really hard, and it really becomes a bigger problem during the scoring, especially towards the end of the game, like the last 2 rounds, where you're trying to figure out everything and there's just stuff everywhere on the board and it's kind of tight and you're trying to look around and it's really hard to score everything because it's like you're looking around, it gets very busy, and it was a real deterrent for us playing this game. To make that even worse, the last round and the end game scoring with all the parchments was so long and hard to get through because you're looking for all these things and, oh, do you have the most of this? How many different controls, how many different fiefs do you control that don't have any resources on them? And you're looking around, the board's hard enough to see at that point, but then you're trying to figure it out and you gotta count multiple times because it's really easy to miss stuff in that final scoring. And then you have how many parchment cards there are. The final scoring can take as long, if not longer, than I'd say a round and a half of the game, period. Because there's just so much involved. It's hard to see. There's too many parchment cards, and I didn't like that. Also, if you play with people that have analysis paralysis, this can really slog them down when they're trying to figure out where to place their buildings. So those are some of the negatives. The biggest ones is just the board and how hard it is to score and how long it takes to score. Really was a detriment. Now, don't get me wrong. I enjoyed the game. I think the game itself, the drafting and the area control is brilliant. It's probably one of the best drafting experiences I've had. Now, if I didn't have these cons to tag along with it, this game will be getting a Saxophone Serenade, hands down, no brainer. But in the end, Richard Garfield has done another really good drafting game that not a lot of people are talking about called Treasure Hunter, which I feel like is very interesting. Plays in 45 minutes like the box says. This one definitely goes longer than that. And it's a lot more streamlined and it's not fiddly scoring. This one, I think, has a better drafting engine. It has much more interesting decisions, but at the same time, the side effects of the board and the scoring take this one down some notches to the point where I'm not like dying to continue to play this game over and over again because it took it down that much for me. So for you, this is going to be a personal thing. The game is amazing, so try it out for sure. But if it doesn't bother you, the end game scoring and looking how busy the board is, trying to figure out all the scoring, or if it doesn't bother you enough that it's going to overtake how fun the game was, then this might be an excellent hands down game for you. For me, the cons were just too much to overcome how awesome of a game it is, and it is awesome, and that's Bunny Kingdom.
This video was sponsored by Miniature Market's Review Corner. The Review Corner features podcasts, video, and written game reviews by gamers for gamers. Miniature Market, the online gaming superstore. Thousands of board games, discounted prices. Check them out at miniaturemarket.com.